My name is Laura. I live in Massachusetts in the Berkshires, and I was diagnosed with Parkinson's in 2012. I had strange symptoms beginning in January of 2009. I came down with a very strong flu that I could not shake for 2.5 months. And during that time, I got pain between my shoulder blades on the left side, and my left hand started to tremor a little bit. I was not concerned because I thought it was a pinched nerve, and my family has essential tremor. So I was not concerned about it. But things progressed. I got more of a tremor. And so I started to do alternative things over the next couple of years. And then in 2012, I started to get other symptoms, and I went to see a neurologist, and they diagnosed me with Parkinsonism and said, it was Parkinson's disease, and wanted me to take medicine, which I refused for 9 years. But I finally did start taking medicine in 2018, which is a huge regret of mine because now trying to come off it is a difficult task. But I believe it is incredibly stress related because I can tell you that there have been times in my life when I've had almost a full recovery, and then something profoundly stressful happens and I'm thrown back down into symptoms. As I said, my symptoms have abated over time. I've had periods when I've had almost no symptoms because I've done a lot of different things, a lot of different alternative things, and I had almost no symptoms, and then they profoundly increased due to stressful events. And I kind of have always felt like there was a trauma that set it off, because I did have a trauma in 2008, a huge trauma before I got the flu and the symptoms came on. I would say that the symptoms that trouble me the most are I have a lot of dystonia in my left hand, and it's become more contracted over the years. There was a period of time in 2015 and 2016 when it wasn't as contracted and I was able to do exercises and get it open. But I repeat that once I started taking medication, that magical ability of my body to bounce back quickly became a little more challenged. The things I struggle with now are steadiness with walking. Sometimes my knees feel weak and my core feels weak. That's a frustrating symptom. Tremor is troubling only when it's extreme. Like I have a slight tremor now. I'm doing some medication now. I have a slight tremor. And also sometimes medication makes it worse or doesn't work at all. But I do have a slight tremor now, but if I'm not medicated, sometimes it's like an incredible, seismic blast of tremor, which is very frustrating. And a lot of spasm. Spasm is my absolute worst symptom. I have always known that it's related to stress, but it's still, when you're in the middle of symptoms, it's hard to remember that. And you get carried away in the diagnosis that you've been given, that it's, permanent, that it's incurable, that it's progressively worse. And the more you think about those things, the worse you get, which is very frustrating. And, I'm in a lot of Facebook groups with people that have Parkinson's or related issues. And I just read a comment the other day. One of my Facebook friends said that if she thinks a stressful thought, her tremor increases, and she has to reduce and reverse that thought, and then she can get her tremor to calm down. And I told her, well, that's a lucky thing you can get it to calm down. She said, only if I'm medicated can I get it to calm down. In my off times, I can't. So that's what I'm aiming for, is to continue working with my coach, Lillian, because while I'm with her, there have been many, many times when we work online, when she will do EFT with me, or she will do something that she calls, I think, mindfulness, which is sort of works like hypnosis for me, where my symptoms stop. All my symptoms can stop. The very first session I had with her, my tremor stopped, or it went to a minimal, less than it is now even. And then there was another session we had where my spasm stopped. And that was a huge miracle for me because my spasm is almost constant with me. So the idea, I think her idea, is to get you to the place where you can do it yourself. You know, her coaching, I'm not ready to let go of her coaching right now. Her coaching is fabulous. And I think you owe it to yourself to get her coaching. But her ultimate goal is to make you independent and able to, you know, use the tools that she's presenting so that you can heal yourself, you know, and your body can continue to heal. And when you're stressed or there's a traumatic event or a pattern, you know, we also talk about different personality patterns and mental patterns and beliefs and how they affect your disease. You know, all these things are assessed, and, you know, you use all the tools that you're given, and ultimately, you know, you can keep yourself symptom free. That's the goal. So there's another thing that comes to mind, and Lillian has talked with me about it, is the fight, flight, and freeze response. And this is something that I've examined before that, because it does really seem like, myself anyway, and I think most people with this particular condition that they're calling Parkinson's, is that we're stuck. I definitely have experienced all those things, you know, being stuck, like not even being able to feel my emotions or respond in a normal way, you know, from being upset to calming down. There was, before we started working together, a constant core of being stuck in one state. And, you know, in terms of freeze, my body would actually freeze. And I know that that's supposedly a condition of Parkinson's. But after working for a while with Lillian, I reduced my medication somewhat, and I don't freeze anymore. You know, like if I'm approaching, I would freeze when I was approaching something. I would be walking and approaching something that was some sort of like psychological obstacle. It could have been a chair, a trash can, another person, and suddenly I wouldn't be able to walk. I wouldn't be able to move my feet, but I don't freeze anymore. So that's one part of the fight, flight, freeze that's easing up. You know, I want to add fight, fright, freeze instead of fight, flight, freeze, because I think that's, I kind of feel that I might be stuck in fright. You know, there's a lot of fear and anxiety in Parkinson's, and I've spoken with her about it, and she says that there's a lot of adrenaline. You know, you're kind of stuck in a state of high adrenaline. And I have noticed that I've been doing biking. Maybe not as much as I'm required to do, but enough that I feel, you know, committed to it and it feels good. And I notice that, you know, I will be medicated and my medication's starting to wear off, and I'll get on the bike and I'll bike for at least a half an hour or 45 minutes. And suddenly my symptoms are calm, you know, so the adrenaline that was rising, the imbalance in my body of chemicals, has suddenly somehow adjusted itself, which is just a wonderful feeling, really a wonderful feeling. I mean, every day is different, you know, sure, when you have a chronic condition, it's not consistent. You can't say, well, you know, I'm going to take my pill every day at the same time and I'm going to feel exactly the same. I don't think anybody, whether they're sick or well, feels the same every day, all the time. You know, so that's frustrating because you're always looking for problems when you're diagnosed with a chronic condition. You know, like, oh, this is happening. Oh my God, I'm getting worse. You know, so that's why I think it's important to work with somebody that has a clear vision that you can get better and gives you tools that you can focus on to keep that, you know, clear goal. Because setting goals and achieving goals actually increases dopamine. So, you know, it's kind of a bonus. And that's another thing actually that I wanted to talk a little, just to quickly mention, is my creativity. My desire to be creative and my creative actions are increased, you know, along with more physical stability and physical abilities. I've taken a 30-day poetry challenge. You know, I haven't written poetry in years and years, but I've taken the month of April, every day I'm writing a poem. And it doesn't have to be perfect. That's another thing I learned. 80% is okay. 110% is not necessary. Just write a poem every day. That's the challenge. Not to win a Nobel Prize every day, but to write a poem every day. And I've been doing that, and it just is very satisfying. You know, and to be having something satisfying in my life, it's been a while, because illness makes you focus on it. So the more you can focus on something else, the better you feel. So I'm very thankful for that as well. I had a very, very intense and tumultuous childhood. And although I think I've had a good life, and I've had lots of joyful times and fun things, and I have a great sense of humor and love to laugh, I think that I've held a lot of traumas. And I have always really felt that these things add to my condition, that these things keep me locked in this condition. So, I was glad to find somebody that was willing to help me address previous traumas and also give me a way to approach life so that, current worries and problems don't become traumas. But in addressing previous traumas, and this is something that I want to mention, that I think people don't do it because it's a process. You don't magically clean up. I'm going to be 63 next week. You don't magically clean up a very traumatic childhood, in 6 weeks. It's just not going to happen. I want it to happen. Certainly I'd like to find like the magic link that would turn everything off, because there have been times when things did turn off, but I want them to be turned off permanently. So it's a process that you have to work through, and feeling feelings that you've stuffed for years and years and years is not necessarily pleasant, so it's good to remember that and know that, yeah, it's hard, it hurts to go through it, but it doesn't hurt any more than being non-functional and ending up in a nursing home and having to have people, take care of your toileting needs. I mean, I've been there with Parkinson's and I've recovered from that, and I don't want to be there again. So I want to address the underlying causes for this, repeating this condition, this neurological condition, is my way of responding to life. I want to address and permanently eradicate that kind of a response. So I do want to work through these traumas, but it takes perseverance. It definitely takes all the strength. And I think it's a good place to put your strength, rather than like, what is the next pill that's going to come out that's going to save me? Or is there an operation that's going to save me? Maybe. Okay, I don't know. I've never found any real joy or any real comfort in medication. It's sort of brief, and it's a heavy price. You pay a heavy price. But if I could unwind all these traumatic events and my nervous system could recover, I'm willing to go through what I need to go through to get there, because that's really, I think, where we need to be.